So let's understand defamation. Fine. पहले तो we need to understand the term defamation. What is defamation? So see, when you understand the term defamation, when we want to understand the term defamation, defamation means that injuring someone's reputation in the minds of other. मतलब दूसरों के नजरिए में किसी की इज्जत गिरा देना. In the minds of other, lowering the reputation of one person. ठीक है? So in the minds of other, you are lowering that person's reputation. So that is defamation. That is basically defamation. So if you are damaging a particular person's reputation in the minds of the other like-minded people or good people in the society, reasonable people of the society, then you have committed defamation. Fine. Now, why is it a criminal offense in Ipcc? Ideally, it was supposed to be a civil offense. In most countries, it is a civil offense. But since the concept of reputation was cherished in India, they wanted to make it criminal offense as well, because they did not want the society to be they did not want to encourage dispute within the society by not making it criminal. If you don't make this criminal unnecessary, the dispute in society will be encouraged. Up civil suit jao, it will take again time. So they wanted something which is robust. So obviously a criminal case is robust. So that is the reason they have made it criminal. This we'll understand why it is criminal when we understand Subramaniam Swamy case. ठीक है? एक सेकेंड. अब देखो कि what is defamation? That has been defined by section 499. Now section 499 is such a section that has 4 explanations. 4 explanations. So first they say that, see, let us read that section. आ जाओ एक बार खोलो 499. Come to 499. Are you guys on 499?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read, or by signs or by visual representation, makes or publishes any imputation concerning any person intending to harm, or knowing or having reason to believe that the imputation will harm the reputation of such person. So reputation of such person. It's over any imputation which harms the reputation of a particular person, that is defamation. So now 499 defines defamation. It also extends the definition of defamation. It provides a lot of situation to you. It says that whether a dying person will have reputation. ठीक है, ये भी सवाल इनका जवाब देती है 499 कि whether dying person has reputation, whether a company has reputation, whether a class of person has reputation. All these questions are given by 499. All these answers are given by 499. Aapka 499 does not only talk about a general definition. It says defamation. It also extends the meaning of defamation. It says that, see, whether a dying person will have reputation, whether a company will have reputation, whether a class of person would have reputation. Above all, it explains what will be defamation by explanation 4. जो explanation 4 है ना आपका, एक बार explanation 4 पे टिक मार दो, ये सबसे important है. It provides for what is defamation, what exactly will amount to defamation. ठीक है, not all imputations are defamation. What exactly is defamation, that has been expressly provided in explanation 4. इसको आगे पढ़ेंगे. ठीक है. Now, what is the meaning of defamation? पहले तो we need to understand what does defamation mean in general language. Generally, see, generally a defamation is a false statement. You are lying about someone, and you are lying to lower his credit or reputation. So you are lying about some person, and you are making a false statement about that particular person, and that false statement is ultimately lowering his reputation. आप किसी के बारे में किसी को झूठ बोल रहे हो, अल्टीमेटली क्या हो रहा है कि उस झूठ की वजह से his reputation has been is lowering. His reputation is lowering. ठीक है? So that is what defamation is. अब जैसे इसमें एक सेकेंड, ये पता है कौन है? Do you guys know who is?
Yes, sir. Ravindra Jadeja.
Ravindra Jadeja, correct. All rounder. What are your views? What are you? Imagine you are the reasonable persons in society. What are your views about him? All rounder. ठीक है? Honest player. Never. We have never seen him cheating. Not even any. He is involved in any scandal, scam, nothing. कभी सुना है रविंद्र जडेजा बॉल टैम्परिंग में या किसी में भी इन्वॉल्व हो, फिक्सिंग में? नथिंग. सो ऑनेस्ट पर्सन, ऑल राउंडर, गुड क्रिकेटर. दीज ऑल स्टेटमेंट्स, दीज आर द व्यूज दैट पब्लिक और द राइट माइंडेड पीपल इन द सोसाइटी हैव. कुछ होते हैं, कुछ लोगों का अलग व्यू होगा, दोज आर एक्सेप्शंस, बट मोस्टली द राइट माइंडेड पीपल इन द सोसाइटी हैव दीज व्यूज अबाउट दिस पर्टिकुलर फेलो. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस, वन डे देयर इज दिस न्यूज़पेपर, उसका नाम था अब तक. ये तो गुजराती न्यूज़पेपर. Now what do? They publish a report. And they are alleging that all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja has an involvement in land grabbing. Land grabbing means जमीन चोरी करना, जमीन पे कब्जा करना. So he has an involvement in land grabbing. Now, do you think that his reputation is lowered in the minds of right-minded people by this statement? क्या लगता है आपको?
Yes, sir.
Yes, definitely. So therefore, what did Ravindra Jadeja do? Ravindra Jadeja filed a case of defamation against the newspaper, the publisher, the writer of the writer also. Okay? Because what did this do? What this particular imputation do? Or what does this particular article do? This particular article lowered the credit or the reputation of Ravindra Jadeja. RJ. Okay? So it lowered the credit of Ravindra Jadeja basically. Fine. So this is a clear case of defamation wherein you are making a false statement. Now this statement was not proved. So this statement, you can say that it is a false statement and there was no evidence to support the same. So you can say that this was a false statement. So wherein you are making a false statement to lower a particular person's reputation or to lower a particular person's credit. एक झूठा स्टेटमेंट आप बना रहे हो एक पर्टिकुलर पर्सन का रेपुटेशन कम करने के लिए. फाइन, दैट इज डिफेमेशन. सिंपल एज दैट. अब सपोज एक और केस बताता हूँ. ये तो पता है सबको, जावेद अख्तर जी. ठीक है? एंड एवरीवन नोज हर आल्सो. डू यू गाइस नो हर?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In a TV interview, she made a statement saying that Javed Akhtar had threatened me to apologize Ritik, and he also forced me to write a letter of apology. Now, with respect to Javed Akhtar, his image in the industry or the Bollywood industry is such that he has been always viewed as an upright person. Now, this statement of her has lowered this reputation. Okay, naturally this lowered this reputation. So he filed a case of defamation, a criminal case of defamation under section 500. 500 is the punishability. ठीक है? तो अब यहाँ पर भी, now whenever a defamation case comes, the first thing that the court does is whether the imputation is false or true. So now the court will actually, the case is ongoing, the court will actually decide whether this statement which is made by Kangana is false or true. ठीक है? If it is false and it is certainly lowering the reputation of Javed Akhtar, then he will be held liable. Kangana will be held liable. She will be held liable. Fine. Now, see, this is the general idea of defamation. This is what defamation generally means. ये defamation का general idea है. क्या आप किसी के बारे में, यू आर मेकिंग अ फॉल्स स्टेटमेंट अबाउट समवन एंड अल्टीमेटली दैट पर्सन's reputation is being tarnished or lowering the reputation. Now what is its actus reus and mens rea? For that you will have to read 499. एक बार 499 पे आ जाओ. 499 पे हो?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. Whoever by words either spoken or intended to be read or by signs or by visual representation makes or publishes any imputation concerning any person intending to harm or knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of such person. Simple. Ab here what is happening under 499, the actus reus is making or publishing. The actus reus is making or publishing. ठीक है. Now the actus reus is you are making or publishing an imputation, मतलब a statement, whether that is oral, written, verbal, visible representation, whatever it is, you are making or publishing. So this is the actus reus. ये आपका actus reus हो गया. So this is the punishability act, actus reus. Now what is the mens rea? आपका mens rea है intention, knowledge or reason to believe. Your mens rea is that you have either the intention, या तो आपके पास knowledge है, or you have a reason to believe that what I am saying, this will certainly harm this person's reputation. Either you have the intention, either you have the knowledge, or you have the reason to believe that this imputation which I am making, the statement that I am making, will harm the reputation. ठीक है, ये जो statement मैं बोल रहा हूं, ये ultimately reputation harm करेगा. Fine. So this is the mens rea. जो intention है, knowledge है या reason to believe है, I have this intention, I have this knowledge, or I have this reason to believe that this statement which I am making will certainly harm the reputation of this fellow. Fine. तो अगर इन तीनों में से कोई भी चीज है, if this mens rea you have, then you have committed the offense of defamation. Fine. So the actus reus here is publication. मतलब या तो बनाना or even to publish. See, there are two persons. Try and understand. ये clear है? Actus reus and mens rea is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Second. Wait. चलो ये making और publishing में difference मैं बाद में बताता हूँ. But this is clear. This is the actus reus and this is the mens rea. Fine. So suppose अगर if A tells B that he is of bad character, then it is no defamation. अगर ये A है, ये B को बोलता है कि B, you are a person of bad character. You are a bad person. You are the worst person alive. Then it is not defamation, because the idea of entire defamation is that you are lowering his reputation in the minds of others, not in himself. So the idea of defamation is that you are lowering reputation in minds of other. In minds of other. ठीक है, दूसरों के दिमाग में आप उसकी रेपुटेशन कम कर रहे हो. यू आर लोअरिंग दैट पर्सन्स रेपुटेशन इन द माइंड्स ऑफ अदर. ठीक है, नॉट इन हिमसेल्फ. सो अगर आप किसी को मुंह पर गाली दोगे, एंड इफ यू मेक अ फॉल्स स्टेटमेंट ऑन हिज फेस, दैट इज नॉट डिफेमेशन. इफ यू से टू अ थर्ड पर्सन एंड हिज इंप्रेशन with respect to same is changed, then in that case that is defamation. So the idea in defamation, that the core value of defamation is you are lowering a particular person's reputation in the minds of others. अब इसके लिए you'll have to read explanation 4. Explanation 4 पे आ जाओ. Are you guys in explanation 4?
Yes, sir.
No imputation is said to harm a person's reputation unless that imputation directly or indirectly in the estimation of others, इसको सर्कल कर दो, in the estimation of others, not in himself, दूसरों के नजरिए में, in the estimation of others, lowers the moral or intellectual character of that person, lowers the credit of that person, lowers the caste, ये बात की बात है, ठीक है. So the important element is that in the estimation of others, दूसरों के नजरिए में you are lowering his credit, you are lowering his moral and intellectual character, you are lowering his reputation. So in the minds of other, fine. अब suppose such a thing happens that this person A is saying bad words or saying a lot of bad things to B, and he is saying them in front of public. ये सारे पूरी जनता खड़ी है. So now the question is whether that will amount to defamation. The answer is yes.
Yes.
It will amount to defamation. The reason it will amount to defamation, the people have seen. Okay, people have heard it. So definitely his estimation in those people will ultimately be lowered. उसका जो लोग सोचते हैं उसके बारे में कम हो जाएगा automatically. Fine. So this is one aspect. अब आ जाओ आगे. See, the word in 499, the word that is used is reputation, not character. एक बार 499 में जाओ, मेन सेक्शन में दिख रहा है आपको?
Yes, sir.
Such imputation will harm the reputation of such person. So यहाँ पर जो word used है, that word is used is reputation, not character. Character नहीं use किया है. So what is the difference between character and reputation? See, character is what you think about yourself. What do you think about yourself? कि मैं सोच रहा हूँ, नहीं, sorry, character is what you really are. What you really are in present, what you really are. That is character. मैं क्या हूँ अभी. Reputation is what other people think about you. ठीक है, जो आप हो, that is character, and what people think about you, that is reputation. So now defamation talks only about character and not defamation talks only about reputation and not character. So character is what a person actually is. Banda kya hai actually. And reputation is what neighbors and others say about him. Other people's opinion is reputation. कि बाकी लोगों का जो ओपिनियन है वो रेपुटेशन हो जाती है. बाकियों का जो ओपिनियन है अबाउट दिस फेलो, that becomes reputation. Now the question is कि 499 does not talk about character. Does not talk about character. It only mentions about reputation. सिर्फ और सिर्फ रेपुटेशन के बारे में बताता है, वो कैरेक्टर के बारे में नहीं बताता. ये इसके बारे में बात नहीं करता. And that is the reason, that is one of the reason that a person that is the reason a person cannot if you are saying a statement or a false statement to that person itself, it is not defamation. That is one of the reasons that if you are making a person if you are making a statement to that person, that will not amount to defamation. So a man's opinion of himself cannot be called reputation. बंदा अपने बारे में क्या सोचता है, that is not reputation. So a man has no reputation to himself. ठीक है, एक आदमी को खुद के लिए, a man will have no reputation for himself. You cannot say that, oh, I have reputation for myself. You cannot say. Others respect you, so you have reputation through others. So a person can not have reputation to himself. So that is the reason if you are making a defamatory statement to that person only, to that person itself, to the person defamed itself, then it is not publication, or that it is not defamation. ठीक है, देखो, a person can have no reputation to himself. What is reputation? Reputation is what other people think about you. Fine. So a person cannot have reputation with himself. So therefore, if you are communicating any defamatory statement directly to the person defamed, then it is not defamation. It is not publication. Is this clear? ये clear है?
Yes, sir.
दिस इज क्लियर राइट? ये भी क्लियर
Yes.
है? ठीक है, आगे बढ़े?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, ठीक है। अब आ जाओ, what imputation will harm a person's reputation? कौन सा ऐसा स्टेटमेंट है that will harm a what is that imputation or what is that statement that will harm a person's reputation? That has been provided in explanation 4. अब आ जाओ explanation 4 में, what imputation or what statement will harm a particular person's reputation? That has been provided in explanation 4. अब explanation 4 पढ़ो, ठीक है? Are you guys on explanation 4?
Yes,
आ
sir.
जाओ, नीचे आ जाओ, मैं यहाँ पे ब्रेक करते हैं बाद में, पहले नीचे आ जाओ। No imputation is said to harm a person's reputation unless that imputation directly or indirectly, यहाँ तो directly or indirectly, in the estimation of other person, lowers means reduces the moral or intellectual character of that person, or lowers the character of that person in respect of his caste, fine, or of his calling, lowers the credit of that person, causes it to be believed that the body of that person is in loathsome state, or in a state which is considered generally disgraceful. So अब इसमें क्या कर रहे हो आप? या तो आप उसके moral और intellectual character को lower कर रहे हो in the minds of others. So other people are thinking that this fellow is immoral and this fellow is intellectually not good. You are lowering the character of that person in his caste. ठीक है, this society या caste में belong करता है. You are lowering his reputation in his caste and his calling. Calling means that people who generally sit with him, normally calling, जैसे normal लोग जो उसको बुलाते थे उसमें. So you are lowering his character. First, you are lowering his moral or intellectual character. Secondly, you are lowering that person's character in respect of his caste or calling. You are lowering the credit of that person. You are causing everyone to believe that this fellow is of loathsome state. His body is in a loathsome state, in a very bad shape, or not in a good shape, and he is in a disgraceful state. So अगर आप इन चारों में से कोई भी चीज कर रहे हो, if you are doing any of these 4 things, then you are causing a harm to his reputation. So now these 4 things you have to understand and you will have to remember also. Now these 4 things, the first thing here is, now in these 4 things, the first thing, पहले तो समझो what is he doing? He is lowering in the estimation of others. Estimation of others में मतलब दूसरे के नजरिए में, in the estimation of others, in the thinking of other people. So lowering in the estimation of others. What are you lowering? You are lowering his moral or intellectual character. So मतलब लोग बोल रहे हैं कि यार ये बंदा immoral है. This fellow is not intellect. So you're lowering his moral or intellectual character. Fine. Then comes second. Second, you are lowering the character of that person in respect of his caste. So lowering character in respect of his caste. In respect of his caste or calling. Or calling. ठीक है? And third, you are lowering the credit of that person. Lowering the credit मतलब क्या? What does credit means? That you have faith in this person. So ultimately you are making him seem such a person that no one is having faith in him. So you are lowering the credit of that person. You are lowering the credit of that person. ठीक है? And you are causing people to believe that this fellow is in a loathsome state. His body is in a loathsome state, in a very bad shape, loathsome state, and his body is generally disgraceful. ठीक है? If you are causing any of these three things, if you are causing any of such things, then you are causing harm to his reputation. Then you are causing harm to his reputation under 499. Fine? Yes, Raisha.
सर आप प्लीज एक बार थर्ड पॉइंट वापस एक्सप्लेन कर दो कि क्रेडिट
lowering the credit. What does credit means? That credit actually means you are having faith in this person. So ultimately what you are doing, you are lowering his credit, that no one is having faith in him. The people who know him, they are not having faith in him because you have made such a statement. Fine. So you are lowering his credit.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ananya.
So am I audible?
You are audible. Perfectly audible.
So मुझे ये पूछना था कि जब हम किसी को बॉडी शेम करते हैं तो वो भी डेफेमेशन होता है?
हाँ, वो बॉडी शेम करते हो आप, डेफेमेशन में आ जाएंगे.
ओके ओके सर.
If it is false. ठीक है?
नहीं सर, मतलब जैसे अगर ग्रुप में हम किसी का मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं सबके सामने तो वो भी डेफेमेशन ही हुआ?
डेफेमेशन में आया. If it is exaggerated in a satirical manner, तो yes.
ओके सर.
ठीक है. तो ये सारे डेफेमेशन में आ गए. ये सारे चीजें डेफेमेशन में आ गए. If you want to remember this, the short form to this is MLC. MLC तो हम कोर्ट्स में यूज करते हैं. MLC, मेडिको लीगल सर्टिफिकेट. तो L 2 बार है. M से लोअरिंग मॉरल और इंटेलेक्चुअल कैरेक्टर. L से lowering the character in respect of caste or calling, lowering the credit of that person, causing people to believe that he is in a loathsome state or generally disgraceful. Okay. So if you have done any of this, you have caused defamation to that person. अगर आप इनमें से कुछ भी कर रहे हो तो आपने naturally, directly या indirectly आपने defamation cause की है. Fine. अब देखो, कभी कभी क्या होता है कि we use vulgar language. Suppose कभी आपने किसी को गाली दे दी. Suppose in a village, there is this village and women are generally fighting near the well. This is well and they are generally fighting. A and B are generally fighting. A says a word, a Hindi word, and which means that a woman of easy virtue. A says a Hindi word which means woman of easy virtue, and she calls B that. Okay, she calls that you are a woman of easy virtue, and lot of people are listening here. C, D, everyone is listening here. Now this won't amount to defamation. Now I'll tell you the reason. Because such words in a village setting are very common. हम गाली देते हैं कुछ. We use abusive words. Now in certain cases we do not mean the exact meaning of it. हम exact मतलब उसका नहीं चाह रहे. These words are used in a common setting where we are living. So that is the reason that will not amount to defamation, because the intention, reason to believe or knowledge is not there to actually harm the reputation. Rather, it is used more in a common reference. So here what had happened, a woman uttered an abusive word. Okay. Abusive word, in this case, the word was chinal. Okay, the word was chinal, so it used an abusive word against another woman. Okay, meaning thereby that she was a woman of easy virtue. No case was held to be maintainable as use of such language in villages where the women generally fight is common, is very common. So ये सब language common है, so that is the reason it was not amount to defamation. The reason in this case, the court held that there is no element of harming the reputation, or there is no intention or mens rea of harming the reputation. These words are commonly used. So you cannot say that she specifically used this word just to harm the reputation. ठीक है, just to harm the reputation. उसके लिए specifically use किया तो ये नहीं बोल सकते. So therefore, mere vulgar abuse does not amount to defamation. जैसे आप किसी को मोटा बोल देते हो, तो generally it is there. In many cases, you don't mean that that person is fat. In many cases, you do not mean. जैसे my sister is very thin. हम उसको मोटी मोटी बुलाते हैं. So we do not mean that she is fat. It's just that it is used in the common setting. The intention, knowledge, or reason to believe is not to harm her reputation, or to present that she is in a loathsome state. ये सब present करने का हमारा intention, knowledge or reason to believe नहीं. It's just that these words are used commonly. Fine. So now, so this is one aspect, that mere vulgar abuse does not amount to defamation. But now there is this other angle to it. Now, if you describe a person and you are naming that person and you are describing that she is a mistress with a particular man, you are describing that she is a mistress with a particular man, and you are telling that this fellow is a mistress and she is going with these guys. Now, this is certainly a defamatory statement. This is certainly a defamatory statement. ये आपका defamatory statement हुआ. Because here your intention was clear to harm the reputation. यहाँ आपका intention बिल्कुल ठीक था. Because you are describing a woman as being a mistress of some other person. So here you are actually intending to harm her reputation. So here the intention was clear. Imputing a woman with having paramours, that she has a lot of lovers, and this woman is married wherever she goes. This will also amount to defamation. This will also be defamation. Fine, is this clear? यहाँ तक clear है?
Sir,
हाँ जी.
if we go by this, then जो इससे पहले डाउट था कि सर अगर कोई मजाक कर रहा है बहुत सारे ग्रुप में तो would it be a defamation? तो सर फिर वहां पर भी तो इंटेंशन नहीं है.
Body shaming per se, मतलब if there is an intention to present a person in a loathsome state, if there is an intention, reason to believe, then it is defamation. But अगर आप ऐसे ग्रुप में यूज कर रहे हो, normally where the word is common, it is not. ठीक है? So it depends upon which setting you are, ना.
मतलब सर जो ऐसे मजाक में जो भी बोलेंगे वो
जैसे सपोज ए की शादी हो रही है, ठीक है, ए की शादी हो रही है, ए इज अबाउट टू गेट मैरिड. आप उसके ससुराल वालों के पास जाते हो, the in-laws, to be in-laws, and you are telling him that this woman is very fat. How are you even getting married with her? She is in a loathsome state. She stays. Now here you have done body shaming to her. You have done body shaming to her, but this body shaming is not common. This was not supposed to be done. And here the intention is clear, that you wanted to harm her reputation in order to spoil her marriage. So here this will be defamation. But suppose you are sitting in a group and you guys are joking with each other. You have names for a particular person. That per se is not defamation. Clear?
Yes sir.
ठीक है. आगे बढ़े?
Yes sir.
एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है कि देखो, नाउ द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट reputation with respect to public persons and celebrities, it's a different ball game. Suppose you are a public figure, you are a well-known public figure. The law says that you have to have a thick skin. आपकी जो चमड़ी है वो मोटी होनी चाहिए. Now, what does that mean? That you have to have a thick skin. This means that you should not be easily swayed away, or you should not get harmed by small insults. That those insults will do nothing to your reputation, because anyways your reputation is a lot bigger than this. So what does law say is that any celebrity or any public figure or any political figure, that has to be a person of thick skin. A political figures की तो time and again defamation होती है. Narendra Modi says something about Rahul Gandhi says something about Narendra Modi. Now, if everything is brought into court and we are asked them to decide, so the courts will become a political theater. We will never come to a conclusion. So what the law says, that these public figures or popular figures, they need to have thick skin. Their defamation cannot be just easily done. They will have to establish something more than a harm to reputation. Something more. They have to establish that their reputation. They have to ordinary statements or ordinary statements will not harm their reputation. Okay, the statements should be of a greater value. अब वो बताता हूँ कैसे. Yes, Bhavna.
Sir, in a recent case, Supreme Court said that if at all you think about Kangana Rawat and her statements, you are giving air to her, whatever thoughts she has, and she delivers the statement in the public. So, like, how will be treated in terms of defamation? Like, court itself is saying that this is a person whose thought should not be taken seriously.
That is different. Court did not say that. That was said by someone, an advocate, no? Supreme Court advocate.
Okay, Supreme Court advocate said
Yeah.
that whatever she says should not be taken in seriously.
Seriously, should not be taken into seriously. Supreme Court advocate said, and this was in Sushant Singh Rajput. This was a long time ago.
So this is not defamation.
This is not defamation. This is something else. I'll tell you what is it. आगे बढ़ते हैं.
Okay.
Okay. So see, now, whenever you are a public figure, a lot of people will say a lot of things about it. So everything does not amount to defamation. Now, things which are done with actual malice means that actual bad element or bad intention with the purpose of only defaming you. With the purpose of, now here the intention should be higher, not like the ordinary defamation. So if certain things are done only for the purpose of harming your reputation with actual malice, ठीक है, एक actual malice से की गई है कुछ चीजें, मतलब मकसद ही यही है कि आपकी reputation की वो आग लगानी है, आपकी reputation को खराब करना है. So the idea is that to harm the reputation only. So that will be defamation. So the important element here is when you are a public figure, you will have to prove the actual malice of the person who is defaming you. So if you're a public figure, someone who voluntarily is in the public eye, you only get to win a defamation case if you can prove that someone said something false about you with actual malice. पूरे intention के साथ आपकी वो reputation harm कर रहा है. Actual malice means that the speaker lied knowing that the words were false, or was recklessly indifferent whether they were true or false. ठीक है, उसने क्रॉस चेक करने का भी नहीं सोचा सच है या झूठ है, एंड उसने पर्पसली पता था कि ये झूठ है, बट आई वांट टू जस्ट हार्म दिस पर्सन्स रेपुटेशन. सो दैट इज मेलिस. नाउ सी, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स against any public figure because a lot of people hate a public figure, right? So a public figure will certainly have a lot of enemies. So just because someone dislikes a public figure does not mean the false statement he makes about that person are malicious. ठीक है, just because एक बंदे को पसंद नहीं है public figure, वो कुछ statements बोल रहा है कि यार this fellow I don't like, this fellow is into drugs and etc. Now that does not mean that these statements are malicious. See, statements are malicious when they are done with a motive of only harming your reputation. Okay? So when it comes to public figures will have a lot of hatred anyways. So not all hatred or not all statements will be defamation. Only defamation, only filtered defamation, which only statements which are done or intended to harm a particular person's reputation, or which are channelized in such a sense that they want to harm that particular person's reputation, so only those statements will be considered. ठीक है, अब आगे देखो. Yes, Raisha.
So there was a YouTuber, मैंने एक वीडियो देखी थी उसके अंदर he had a collaboration of lot of real clippings of राहुल गांधी, जिसमें वो उसका मजाक ये उड़ा रहा था, मतलब वो एक्चुअली पोर्ट्रे ये कर रहा था कि हाउ डम ही इज. तो अगर ये चीज जनता तक, मतलब हमें वो वीडियो देखकर कम्युनिकेट हो रही है, तो वो डेफेमेशन होगा? वो डेफेमेशन नहीं, वो एक्सेप्शन में आ जाएगा. एक्सेप्शन करेंगे. ओके, एक्सेप्शन में आ जाएगा. एनी पर्सन हु इज इन पब्लिक फिगर, इफ यू आर कमेंटिंग अपॉन दैट पर्सन, सो दैट अमाउंट्स टू एक्सेप्शन. ओके, ठीक है, बिकॉज ही इज इन पब्लिक फिगर. So this is what it said in this. This is what the Supreme Court has time and again said, that if you get into politics or in public, grow some thick skin. ठीक है, छोटी छोटी चीजों में आपको नहीं लगनी चाहिए, because every person has a right freedom of speech.
So your opponents will have the freedom of speech and they will throw some sharp elbows. They will throw some sharp elbows. अपने freedom of speech को मारेंगे ना, so obviously that freedom of speech will hurt you. So the last thing the courts want to do is get into the business of litigating political disputes or popularity disputes. कोर्ट इसके लिए नहीं बैठा है कि सबकी पॉपुलैरिटी और पॉलिटिकल डिस्प्यूट्स डिसाइड करे. सो दीज डिस्प्यूट्स, political or popularity disputes, these are won and lost in voting booths, not in court houses. कोर्ट हाउसेस का काम नहीं है कि हम यही सब करते रहे कि इसने उसको गाली दी, उसने उसको गाली दी. These are to be decided by voters, that whether this person is right or this person is wrong. Wait a second. This slide. ठीक है, clear? Is this clear, guys? Clear है? आगे बढ़े?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, अब आते हैं actus reus पे. Now we have understood what means to harm a reputation. What is to harm a reputation? And whose reputation cannot be easily harmed? A person who is a popular person, his reputation will not be easily harmed. What is harm reputation? 4 things. Explanation 4 provides that what is harm reputation. Now actus reus. What is actus reus? Actus reus is making or publishing. ठीक है. Now see, composing a thing. आप कोई गाना कंपोज कर रहे हो, you're composing a speech, composing a song. That falls under the ambit of making. Dictating a thing to a particular person, that falls under the ambit of making. Writing a thing or contributing in any other way to making of defamation comes within the word makes. So if you are, say, composing a thing, you are dictating a thing, you are writing a thing, you are contributing a thing, so you are making. So now who is a maker? Maker is basically the originator, means the author, the actual author, who is making, who is actually making a defamatory statement. जिसने बनाया है चीज, जिसने बनाया है, the originator. Now the word publish is the person. Now word publishes is the person who brings that defamation to the knowledge of public, or to one person or the another. So the word publishes means to bring to the knowledge of at least one person other than the person defamed. Okay. So publisher is the person who brings to the knowledge of public any person in public other than the person defamed. Maker is the person who actually makes the statement. जो statement बना रहा है वो हुआ maker. Fine. अब देखो कि both are liable. Maker is liable, author जिसने बनाया है. Publisher is also liable. Publisher भी liable है, author भी liable. Now suppose एक author है, suppose there is a fellow A. He has written an article. ठीक है. Now he is the writer of the article. The publishing board is the editor. Editor is the publisher, right? So here the author will also be held liable. The editor will also be held liable. Fine. क्योंकि दोनों ने कुछ योगदान दिया है इस defamation को disseminate होने में. So both have somehow participated in dissemination of the defamation. Therefore, both of them will be liable. So maker will be liable and editor both will be held liable. ठीक है. अब समझो. So the idea here is that the defamatory statement must be communicated to some person other than the person about whom it is addressed. Okay, other than the person defamed. एक सेकेंड. यहाँ तक क्लियर है गाइस?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. अब देखो इसमें एक चीज है. Do you guys know who is a compositor? Compositor पता है किसी को? कंपोजिटर छोड़ो, एक बंदा, एक a fellow who is in charge of printing machine, a fellow in say a fellow, एक second, suppose there is this fellow, A is the author, इसने आर्टिकल लिखा है, B edits the article, he says that yeah, this is a good article. C, what does C do? C is in charge of printing machine. C says fine, obviously he's only in charge of the printing machine, he does not read the paper. उसका काम नहीं है पढ़ने से, उसको सिर्फ बोला है कि आप ये पेपर है, you'll have to print. Now the section holds author liable, the section holds editor liable. Whether the person in charge of printing machine will be held liable, बताइए. Yes, Sarthak.
Sir, no, because he neither have the mensaria nor he have any regulatory authority over the content which is being made or which is being published.
ठीक है. Yes, Raisha.
No, sir, he'll not be liable because it's not under his duty to read the paper or to analyze it.
ठीक है. Yes, Mansi.
So he won't be held liable as there was no malice, no intentions also there. No, neither he had any knowledge about the same.
Yeah, definitely. He won't be held liable because he's not in charge of proofreading the thing. He's not in charge of reading the content. His only duty is to take care of the printing machine. उसका काम है कि printing machine ठीक चल रही है देखना. The paper is printed properly to see that the machine is working properly, the paper is printed properly, it is colored. It's all these duties these are his duty. So his duty is not to actually read, it is not content related. So therefore you cannot impose a liability on him. He has not committed that mens rea, actus reus that is required. So he is not the maker, the originator. He is not the publisher also. Fine, because he is not aware about contents of the document. Even though he is an instrumental, but he is not aware about it is not duty to look into the content. So he won't be held liable. So no liability. Okay. Now there is this interesting question which arises is that whether a communication between, suppose there is A. Okay. A makes a statement to his wife. Wait. एक सेकेंड. Suppose there is H. H makes a statement to W. He tells that this Sharma ji at his office, he's such a stupid fellow, he's such a bad fellow, he makes all those imputations about him. And ultimately his wife, the image of Sharma ji in his wife's eyes is reduced. Now, W thinks that Sharma ji is an evil person. Image of Sharma ji is reduced. Now tell me, whether can this be defamation?
No, sir.
This is a communication between husband and wife.
No, sir. It's a privileged communication.
ठीक है. Yes, Shubham.
No, sir. Of course, a privileged communication.
ठीक है. अब देखो इसमें थोड़ी चीजें अनोखी हैं, थोड़ा है इसमें गेम. The game is slightly trickier than it looks. See, now ideally there is this book, Hari Singh Gaur Penal Law, बहुत ही मोटी book है, page number 4000 something. They have said that uttering of a libel by a husband to his wife is not defamation. ठीक है. But husband अपनी wife को जो भी बोलता है, that won't be defamation about any person. Is saying bad things about any person, that won't be defamation. ठीक है. Because they are one in the eyes of law. अगर husband wife को बोल रहा है, it will mean that he is telling himself, because they are one in the eyes of law. ठीक है. Fine. Till here we are correct. If they are one in law, ठीक है, let us consider them one in law. Let us for a second consider them one in law. अब answer this question. suppose there is this A tells H, who is the husband of W, that W is having a paramour and she is in an extramarital relationship. On hearing this false statement, the image of W is lowered in H's mind. Now tell me whether this is defamation. Yes, Mansi.
Sir, it will amount to defamation. As there's a no communication between the spouse, someone else is communicating the same to the other.
Okay. Yes, Shubham.
Yes, sir. Of course, even you previously the slide in second line, it is also mentioned. It harms the reputation in the other to other spouse also.
ठीक है. Yes, Harsimran, आप बताएं.
Yes, sir, I agree that it is defamation, even though we are considering husband and wife as one entity. But herein we are, when some other person is coming from the outside and is speaking ill about another, then it is causing a mindset to think low of hers.
ठीक है. If we are considering them as one person, will then it amount to defamation? अगर मैं इनको बोलूं कि husband और wife एक है in this scenario, then it won't be defamation. Why it won't be defamation? The reason it won't be defamation, because if I'm saying H and W are one person, so then I'm making a communication to the person defamed only, na? So any communication to the person defamed is not defamation. Are you guys following me? आप लोग मेरे argument को follow कर रहे हैं?
So can you repeat this?
Yes. अगर हम ये मान रहे हैं कि अगर हम ये मान रहे हैं कि husband and wife are one person, if we are saying that husband and wife are one person, तो अगर suppose इस केस में A ने communication की H को, तो हम ये मानेंगे कि A ने communication automatically W को कर दी. Fine. So we cannot charge A for defamation, right? क्योंकि A ने communicate किया person defamed कोई. A has communicated the person defamed. Any communication to the person defamed will not amount to defamation, right? Is this clear? अब
Yes,
clear
sir.
है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
तो अगर one person मानेंगे तो गड़बड़ नहीं हो जाएगी? पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट हिल नहीं जाएगा? Yes, यश.
जो आप कह रहे हैं तो सर इसका मतलब यही हो गया ना कि सर ए और डब्ल्यू के बीच में एक तरीके से प्राइवेट कम्युनिकेशन हुआ, कोई पब्लिक तो बीच में इन्वॉल्व है ही नहीं, तो फिर डिफेमेशन हो गई.
वो पहले वाले में था ना, इस एग्जांपल में बोल रहा हूँ.
हाँ सर, इसी एग्जांपल में अगर ए ने एच से किया एंड वी आर imputing that H and W are the same person, तो सर इसका मतलब इनडायरेक्टली ए ने डब्ल्यू से किया प्राइवेट में ही.
हाँ, करेक्ट. That is what I am imputing. That is what my argument is.
तो सर यहाँ डिफेमेशन नहीं होगा.
वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना. तो if we, that is what I am saying, that if we consider one person analogy, that husband and wife are one person, I don't think that will be the correct statement to make. तो अब उसके लिए आगे हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि क्या सीन है. उसके लिए आगे मैं बताता हूँ कि yes शुभम, सॉरी हस्बैंड बोल रहा हूँ.
सर एक्चुअली वन तो हम लोग ज्यूम कर सकते हैं, बट ये स्टेटमेंट जो है, आई थिंक ये स्टेटमेंट यहाँ पर डिफर कर रहा है. ये स्टेटमेंट जो है पर्टिकुलरली उस वुमेन के कैरेक्टर के बारे में, तो यहाँ पे हम लोग वन कंसीडर नहीं कर सकते. आई थिंक सो.
ठीक है. अब देखो इसके लिए ना, अब ये वन पर्सन वाला लॉजिक, फॉर दिस वी विल हैव टू प्रोसीड फर्दर. बट इतना आप समझ लो कि इफ अ थर्ड पर्सन, पहले तो ये तो बहुत ही क्लियर है. दिस इज ऑन पॉइंट. दिस इज डाउटफुल. नाउ दिस इज what is the argument here? What is the second point saying? That if a third person is coming to you and he is making any harmful imputation about your spouse, then such imputation will be defamation. कोई आपकी पत्नी के बारे में बुरा बोल रहा है आपको, that will amount to defamation. So this is the correct law so far. ये तो correct law है. बट इसमें कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है वन पर्सन का. Here, this is the correct law because we are treating them to be different. Now, what about this? अब इस केस के लिए we will have to refer a case. Yes, Ahmed.
सर एक ओपिनियन था इस पे ही.
हाँ, दो.
सर आई थिंक फर्स्ट वाले केस में क्योंकि हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ के बीच में ही है तो उसको एक रिलीजियस और एक कस्टमरी व्यू से देखा जा रहा है. बट फर्स्ट वाले केस में, बट सेकंड वाले केस में एक आउटसाइडर आ जाता है तो हम वो रिलीजियस एंड कस्टमरी व्यू हटा देते हैं.
ठीक नहीं, ठीक है, फेयर इनफ, तो गुड व्यू. अब आगे आते हैं. अब मैं केस बताता हूँ. केस का नाम है MC वर्गीस वर्सेस TJ पूनम. अब इन दिस केस व्हाट हैड हैपेंड, नाउ ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस केस. व्हाट हैड हैपेंड दैट देयर वर 3 पीपल इन्वॉल्वड हियर. नंबर 3 लोग इन्वॉल्वड है. देयर इज H and there is W. W is residing in Kerala. Fine. And W is residing with with her father. Okay. And this father is father-in-law of H. Okay, naturally father-in-law H का होगा ना. If he is the father of W, then he will be father-in-law of H. So they both are residing in Kerala. H sent various letters to W. Sent letters to W, and in those letters he wrote that this old man is crazy, this father-in-law is crazy, this old man, your father is very bad, all that things he read. He kept on writing about his father-in-law. A lot of things he wrote about his father-in-law. And what happened one fine day, his father-in-law, H's father-in-law, found those letters. And on reading those letters, he filed a defamation case, criminal case. He filed a defamation case. Facts clear है?
Yes, sir.
H ने अपनी वाइफ को लिखा लेटर. नहीं, फादर इन लॉ को बहुत गाली देते कि ये बहुत ही पागल है, ये ऐसे हैं वैसे हैं, कुछ करने नहीं थे, ऐसे अगेन. And those letters were found by the father-in-law ultimately. He read those letters and he filed a defamation case. Fine. Now let us see what happened thereafter. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? उसके बाद क्या होना था कि when he filed a defamation application, when he filed a defamation case, the district magistrate, wait a sec. The district magistrate, तब district magistrate सुनते थे. This is 1968. This is prior to 73. 73 के बाद we came into this judicial magistrate first class और ये सब में हम बाद में आए. CRPC was completely revamped. No? 73 के बाद हम ने ये सब चीजें करना स्टार्ट किया. JMFC ये सब. पहले DM ही ये सब छोटी चीजें सुनते थे. So DM discharging the husband on the grounds. Now DM, he filed a complaint with DM and DM discharged the husband, and he discharged the husband saying that the communication between husband and wife does not amount to publication. जो husband and wife की जो communication है, that will not be publication. ठीक है? अब High Court stated writing of defamatory matter contained in 3 letters. अब obviously the father-in-law went to High Court. DM ने discharge कर दिया. Father-in-law was not happy with this, so he went to High Court. High Court said that writing of defamatory matter in these 3 letters were not publication in law, and no charge under section 500 can be made out, and he discharged the respondent. उन्होंने हाई कोर्ट ने बोला कि यार ये तो कोई चार्ज बनता ही नहीं डिफेमेशन का, छोड़ दो इनको. So he was discharged accordingly. ठीक है, because it was the argument was same in both the cases, that there is no publication. There is no publication. There is no publication. There is no publication. The communication between husband and wife is no publication. Communication between husband and wife is no publication. ठीक है, publication ही नहीं हुई. Husband और wife की communication है, there is no publication. This was the argument in both the cases. Case came before the Supreme Court. Look at father-in-law की हिम्मत देखो. Case डिफमेशन का है, punishment is only 2 years. For that case he went to Supreme Court. Imagine, ऐसा फादर इन लॉ सबको मिले, ठीक है. Now he went to Supreme Court, and now what did the Supreme Court held? Supreme Court said that, see, section, देखो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सारे लॉज एग्जामिन किए, सुप्रीम कोर्ट एग्जामिन्ड ऑल द लॉ. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट लॉ टू बी अंडरस्टूड इन दिस रिस्पेक्ट वाज सेक्शन 122 ऑफ इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट. ठीक है, सेक्शन 122 ऑफ इंडियन एविडेंस एक्ट. Now what does section 122 of Indian Evidence Act say? Section 122 of Indian Evidence Act says that, see, any communication between husband and wife is privileged. Husband and wife, whatever they say is between themselves, and that cannot be produced. They cannot be compelled. Husband and wife cannot be compelled to make any statement in the court of law. So whatever communication is between husband and wife, they cannot be compelled. They cannot be compelled in court. They cannot be compelled in court. ठीक है, ये 122 बोलता है कि जो भी कम्युनिकेशन उनके बीच में है, आप उनको बुला के कोर्ट में ले नहीं सकते. जो भी कम्युनिकेशन है उनके बीच में, आप उनको बुला के कोर्ट में नहीं ले सकते. अब इसमें एक ट्विस्ट आ गया. इसमें ट्विस्ट ये था कि, see, we cannot call husband and wife in court, but if a third person who has heard the communication, can we call him? Or the third person who has actually seen the communication, can we call him? Or the third person who has the evidence of the communication, in this case letter, can we call him? The court said yes, you can call a third person if he has heard the communication, if he has seen the communication, if he has evidence of communication. So in this case, the father-in-law had the evidence of the communication. So you cannot call husband and wife, but you can call third person to prove the communication. So in this case, the court held that this prohibition of 122, which prohibits married person to disclose any communication made to him or her during marriage by a spouse, nowhere the said section prohibits the admissibility of the evidence in any other manner. Meaning that any other person can prove this communication by any other manner. Not necessarily in every case for proving the communication between husband and wife, you will have to call husband or wife in the court stands. Suppose a third person has heard anything what the husband and wife said, so you can call the third person in court. So now the court said that, okay, fine, to prove the communication, we can rely upon the letters. Now again, if we rely upon the letters, अभी यहाँ तक तो हमें reliability का हम we can consider the letter. Now the question is whether we can hold the person liable for defamation. चलो हमने मान लिया, we are considering letters as evidence. Fine, we are considering letters and evidence, but the question whether we can hold the husband liable for defamation if he is making any communication to his wife. Now court here went on to examine this case. Now this was an opinion. The court said that rule that husband and wife are one in law has not been adopted in its full force under our system of law. Certainly not in our criminal jurisprudence. पहली चीज कि ये जो हम बोल रहे हैं, the thing that we are saying that wife and husband are one in law, that is not adopted in our criminal jurisprudence. Even a wife can be held liable for theft. So that is what the court said, that, see, in Queen versus Bucci, it has been held that there is no presumption in law that husband and wife constitute one person in India for the purpose of criminal law. If the wife removing the husband's property from his house does so with dishonest intention, she is guilty of theft. Same, even Madras High Court has said that there is no presumption of law that husband and wife constitute one person. This is an English common law doctrine, and this cannot prevail in India. ठीक है, अब यहाँ पर थोड़ी problematic situation हो गई. These guys are saying that wife and husband and wife are not one in law. In Indian law, It can be true in England, but in Indian law, we have not devised the Indian law in that sense. Now, the court also held, and this is very important, court said that, see, IPC has exhaustively codified all the offenses, and IPC has also provided the exceptions. We cannot invent exceptions. We cannot invent exceptions which are not expressly enacted. हम कुछ ऐसा इन्वेंट नहीं कर सकते जो एक्सप्रेसली प्रोवाइडेड नहीं है आईपीसी में. We cannot invent something which is not expressly provided in IPC. Now, this was their opinion. Now, what do you think? Will you hold the husband liable for defamation after reading all this? Yes, Raisha.
No, sir, I don't think so.
You'll still not hold him liable.
No, sir.
Yes, Shubham.
नो सर, बिकॉज एविडेंस तो है, इवन सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास चला हुआ, बट सर ये पब्लिकेशन नहीं हुआ था. वो एक अगर देखें इफेक्ट तो सर प्रोड्यूसिंग की इफेक्ट और फाइंडिंग की इफेक्ट, तो सर आई थिंक फाइंडिंग यहाँ पे हुई ना कि प्रोडक्शन हुई है. तो आई थिंक सो सर डिफेमेशन तो नहीं होगा, बट एक अच्छा एक जजमेंट आ जा सकता.
बट मेक तो हुआ ना, मेक तो हुआ ना, पब्लिश नहीं हुआ, मेक तो किया ना उसने.
सर मेक किया, बट फिर भी सर वो कहीं से उसकी ये प्रिविलेज माना जा सकता है सर, क्योंकि इस एक्सपेक्ट से तो मुझे नहीं लग रहा कि सर ऐसा.
प्रिविलेज तो उन्होंने बोल दिया, प्रिविलेज नहीं माना सकता था, आप दे सकते. ठीक है. यस राइशा.
So I want to add more, क्योंकि जो फादर इन लॉ हैं उन्होंने वो एक्सीडेंटली पढ़ा था, और जो हस्बैंड था उसकी इंटेंशन नहीं थी कि वो उन्हीं को दे. मोरओवर
उन्हीं को तो देना इंटेंशन था ही नहीं, था उसका इंटेंशन वाइफ को देना. वाइफ ने पढ़ लिया था और उनके माइंड में उसका क्रेडिट लोअर करना था ना, फादर इन लॉ का. अब सोचो.
ओके, हाँ जी,
ठीक है. उनके माइंड में, वाइफ के माइंड में था ना कि अपने फादर के बारे में गलत सोचे. यस सर सिमरन.
सर अगर मैं इसकी लिटरल इंटरप्रिटेशन के साथ जाऊंगी तो आई वुड से दैट ये यहाँ पर डिफॉर्मेशन हुआ है क्योंकि हस्बैंड और वाइफ को एक तो मान नहीं रहे हैं. तो जो हस्बैंड की स्टेटमेंट थी उससे वाइफ की माइंड में इमेज लोअर हुई है, और वो स्टेटमेंट मेक वाले एक्टर सीरियस में फॉल कर रही है, एंड वो इंटेंशन भी दिख रहा है, नॉलेज थी और रीजन टू बिलीव
लायबल होगा.
लाइबल.
ठीक है. यस मानसी.
सर एज पर माई ऑल्सो व्यू ये डिफॉर्मेशन पे लाइबल होंगे, क्योंकि एज पर क्रिमिनल जस्टिस केस ओपिनियन बताया जैसे आपने कि हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ दे बोथ आर नॉट द सेम पर्सन, एंड सेक्शन 122 का अगर आप रिलाय कर अपन करते हैं एविडेंस एक्ट के, तो वहां भी अगर थर्ड पर्सन, जैसे कि फादर ने थर्ड पर्सन को उनको स्टफ्स मिल गए थे राइट एविडेंस के फॉर्म पे, तो ये इसको दिखा सकते हैं रिलायबिलिटी यहाँ से भी आ गई है, तो ये लाइबल होंगे डिफॉर्मेशन के लिए.
ठीक है. यस अनुकृति.
Sir, I don't think that he will be liable for defamation. Sir, because अभी पिछली स्लाइड में लिखा हुआ था कि defamation के लिए सिर्फ मेकिंग ही जरूरी नहीं है, पब्लिकेशन का कम्युनिकेशन भी अदर्स को जरूरी है.
मेकिंग भी डिफेमेशन का एक्टर सीरियस है. जब तक कम्युनिकेशन नहीं होती तब तक ऑब्वियसली हार्म नहीं होगा, तो हार्म भी तो इम्पोर्टेंट है ना. हार्म नहीं, मेकिंग इटसेल्फ इज लायबल. तो कम्युनिकेशन तो हो ही गया ना, उसने सेंड कर दी ना.
Yes, sir. So then I think he will be liable for defamation.
ठीक है. यस अहमद.
Sir, I also think he'll be liable for defamation क्योंकि अगर they are not one entity, हम उनको ऐसे ही देखेंगे जैसे वो एक दूसरे से रिलेटेड है ही नहीं. तो जब वो रिलेटेड है ही नहीं तो उस सर्कमस्टांसेस में वो लायबल होते, तो ये भी होंगे.
अब look at the interesting scenario. This is what, after writing all this, the court held this. We do not deem it necessary to record any final opinion on this question. The case is remanded to the lower court. To the lower court. Lower court में उन्होंने settlement कर दी. In the lower court they settled. End of the story.
अरे क्या तरीका हुआ कोर्ट का.
At present, there is no final opinion on this point. तो don't worry don't worry about it. So the correct अगर questions पूछे तो वैसे तो Indian law में there is no one entity हम नहीं मानते until we do not, because there is no express provision to it. So we are not still taking them as one entity, but there is no such case that has again came before the court which could justify this. तो अभी तक यही है जो चल रहा है इनका opinion, and this also they have said that this is not their final opinion. So this is a very weak opinion. Yes, Shubham.
ये सर एग्जैक्टली क्योंकि अगर क्रिमिनल लॉ में ऑफ कोर्स वन बॉडी नहीं मानेंगे, बट सर अगर इस चीज को डिफेमेशन कंसीडर किया जाए तो हर मतलब
हर
एक
घर
ही
में
हर घर में ये चलता है, व्हाट्सएप
हाँ
ग्रुप एंड ऑल सब में एक दूसरे, तो ये सर आई थिंक ये पॉसिबल नहीं होगा इसको डिफेम करना।
हाँ करेक्ट.
बट सर अगर हम ये हस्बैंड वाइफ वाला कंसिडर करेंगे तो फिर इसको थोड़ा ब्रॉड भी तो करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जैसे अब फैमिली में ही ये तो चलता है, जैसे तो पेरेंट्स और बच्चों के बीच में भी हो सकता है.
हाँ मतलब there needs to be a clarity on this point husband and wife वाले में कि whether we will consider them one or not, that is no longer with respect to defamation. ऐसी clarity अभी तक आपको नहीं मिलेगी. बट हाँ कि अगर नॉर्मल में आंसर लिखना है तो what to do in that case, you can quote this opinion but try to acquit the person, because acquitting that person is reasonable in a reasonable parameter. Okay, you can say that we have to consider it as one person, so as the customs permit it. Customs भी quote कर सकते हो, and you can quote various books also.
बट सर फिर इस ओपिनियन को मतलब किस तरह से लिखेंगे आंसर में, क्योंकि हम तो दूसरी साइड का आंसर लिखेंगे ना
तो ये बोलना कि this opinion is not final. In fact, the court said that this opinion is not final, and therefore this is not binding.
ओके सर.
ये बाइंडिंग नहीं है ना, तभी तो उन्होंने एक्सप्रेसली यही बोला. उन्हें ही पता था कि ये शायद गड़बड़ हो जाएगी इसमें. सो दे सेड दिस इज नॉट बाइंडिंग. ठीक है. यस यश.
सर हो गया क्लियर.
ठीक है. Even SC got pissed with father-in-law. Yeah. Imagine na, for a defamation case, a person is going to Supreme Court, and not in this era. This era, going to Supreme Court is more easier. You have a lot of things. In 68, imagine the amount of education that fellow must be having. ठीक है. Yes, Raisha.
सर तो जो प्रिविलेज कम्युनिकेशन वाला चीज होती है वो
अभी मैं वही बता रहा हूँ, कंक्लूजन वही कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. अब हमें तो निष्कर्ष निकालना है, राइट? वी हैव टू कंक्लूड दिस टॉपिक. द कंक्लूजन इज दिस. आफ्टर रीडिंग ऑल द केसेस एंड ऑल द बुक्स, द कंक्लूजन इज दिस, दैट अ प्रिविलेज्ड कम्युनिकेशन इज नॉट publication. Any privileged communication, say communication between husband and wife, communication between a lawyer and a client, advocate and a client, is a privileged communication. So in such cases, it is not publication. It won't be a publication. A communication between two persons where a privileged relationship exists between the two negatives, the liability खत्म हो जाती है, negatives the liability for defamation, as there is no publication in the eyes of law. So communication between advocate and client, it's no publication. It won't be a case of publication. Or officer and confidential secretary, it won't fall under this category. Suppose a superior or an officer, he is directing a communication, an official communication in a department, say a Ministry of Home Affairs. An officer is directing a communication to his secretary. That communication is also a privileged communication. Okay? Because that is for the interest of public. This you will study when you study evidence. ये 123 में आप पढ़ोगे, ये 126 में पढ़ोगे. This advocate and client you will read in 126. This you will read in 123. It's a privileged communication. So they do not amount to publications. Fine. So अब एक और क्वेश्चन है, ये यहाँ तक क्लियर हो? Till here you guys are clear?
Yes, sir.
whether a notice sent by an advocate on behalf of his client amount to defamation? बताइए. A client, ये client है. Client ने advocate को बताया कि these guys are troubling me a lot, these are very bad guys, and so advocate suggests, fine, we'll send the notice. So advocate sent the notice to this third person. ठीक है. Third person tells the advocate that you have defamed me, that your client has defamed me because he has told all the bad things about me to you. बताइए whether this notice is defamation. Yes, Raisha.
No, sir. It will not amount to defamation.
No. Yes, Anukriti.
No, so it will not be defamation as it is a privileged communication.
Yes, Mansi.
So it will not be amount to defamation. As it will come under privileged communication according to section 126 of the Indian Evidence Act.
ठीक है. Yes, yes, Tanishka.
Yes, sir, no defamation because privileged communication.
Yep, it is no defamation because the communication is privileged. No defamation as communication is privileged. Communication आपकी privileged है. There is no defamation. Simple as that. अब forms of imputation. Now we know that any imputation which harms the reputation. Now what will be the forms of imputation? Now imputation can be by words. It can be spoken or written, by signs, by visible representation. Now what are these visible representation? Visible representation will include every form of defamation. For instance, a statue, caricature, effigy, chalk marks on the wall signs, pictures. ये सारे visual representations में आ जाएंगे. So it can be by words spoken or written. अब यहाँ पर there are two concepts. One is slander and the other is libel. Slander is a type of defamation wherein you are harming a particular person's reputation by speaking something, by a spoken statement. ठीक है, उसको बोलते हैं slander. Libel is when you are harming a particular person's reputation by writing, by making a written material. So your 499 covers both. ठीक है. So libel means by printing a statement and slander means by spoken. Your 499 does not differentiate between both, and it is wide to cover both libel and slander. It's wide enough to cover both. दोनों भी cover कर देता है. ठीक है. ये क्लियर है? यहाँ तक क्लियर हो?
Yes, sir.
ये क्लियर. अब आ जाता हो, आओ defamation of a dead person. Go to explanation 1. Explanation 1 पे आ जाओ. Come to explanation 1. Direct कहाँ गया? एक सेकेंड. Explanation 1 पे हो?
Yes, sir.
It may amount to defamation to impute anything to a deceased person if the imputation would harm the reputation of that person if living, and is intended to be hurtful, and it is intended to be hurtful to the feelings of family or other near relatives. So try to understand that. See, explanation 1 says that defamation of a dead person is possible. So what explanation 1 is trying to say, that defamation of a dead person is possible. Defamation of dead person is possible. Person is possible. हो सकता है defamation of dead person. But now, what are the conditions? There are two conditions for this. दो चीजें हैं इसके लिए. अब look at the first thing. So first thing is that imputation would harm if the person, if he was living. So that the imputation would harm the person if he was living. if he was living. If he was living. And secondly, the most important thing is that it is intended to be hurtful to his family. Matlab, the imputation would have harmed him if he was living, and the imputation is made in such a sense that it is intended to be hurtful to his family or near relatives. Okay. Suppose a son has died and someone is spreading rumors about that son, that this fellow was actually involved in drug trafficking, this fellow was involved in illegal businesses, he was involved in so and so. Now all these statement is definitely hurting to his father. यार मैंने बेटा पाल पोस के बड़ा किया, and he was involved in all these things. Now these false statements are definitely intending or hurting his father or his family relatives. So this will amount to be a defamation. This will be a defamation, and this can fall under 499. Now the important thing is that they should be hurtful to his family or near relatives. Now they have restricted it only for family and near relatives. They haven't restricted it for any other person. ठीक है, और किसी के लिए उन्होंने restrict नहीं किया. They have restricted only for family and near relatives. So suppose such a thing happens that a person has a lot of admirers or he has a lot of devotees. ठीक है, a person dies and he has a lot of admirers and he has a lot of devotees, and that a dead person is being defamed. Dead person is defamed and he has a lot of admirers and devotees, and they are hurted by his defamation. Can they file a case under 499? Can they file a case for defamation? So if an accused defamed a dead and the complainant did not claim that he was a relative of the deceased, but he was a devotee or the admirer of the deceased person, will the relation be enough to hold that person liable for defamation? Bataiye. Yes, Mansi.
No, sir. As per the provision, it has only said that family and near relatives.
Anyone else? किसी को लगता है कि devotees or admirers?
No, sir.
Suppose in this case, ये वाले Sushant Singh Rajput passed away. Fine. Now a lot of people started saying a lot of things about him during the time. Now he is a dead person. Whether his admirers can file a case of defamation because that was hurtful to them? Bataiye. The answer is no. The section is very strict. Section clearly uses the word family or near relative. So the defamation should be hurtful to family or near relatives. Near relatives. So yes, a defamation of a deceased is possible if it is intended to be hurtful to his family or near relatives. एक dead person की defamation possible है if it is intended to be hurtful to his family or near relatives. Fine, is this clear? Yana clear?
Sir, when we define this near relatives, इसमें सर मतलब अभी जैसे आपने devotees वाला example दिया, even followers for that matter would come ना? जैसे
Followers won't fall under near relatives.
मतलब सर जैसे B.R. अम्बेडकर सर की अगर कोई कुछ against बोलता है तो he has a particular community following him, तो वो लोग
defamation they cannot sue for. वो बाकी कुछ और कर सकते हैं, 505 डाल सकते हैं, बहुत कुछ और कर सकते हैं. Defamation they cannot sue for.
पर सर devotees कर सकते हैं.
Devotees नहीं कर सकते. Devotees and admirers cannot. Both cannot.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, both devotees और admirers नहीं कर सकते. चाहे आपका devotees हो चाहे आपके admirers हो, they cannot do not fall under the category of near relatives. They are not near relatives. Clear है?
यस सर, नियर रिलेटिव से सर हम ब्लड रिलेशंस में ही जाएंगे.
ब्लड रिलेशनशिप में जाएंगे. ठीक है.
ठीक है.
यस तनिष्का.
सर बट यहाँ पे वो पब्लिक फिगर था तो उसका कुछ नहीं एक्सेप्शन होगा.
इसमें नहीं है एक्सेप्शन. पब्लिक मतलब कौन ये
यस
सुशांत, वो तो अलग
Yes.
बात है. मतलब ये कॉमनली एग्जांपल के रूप में बोल रहा हूँ. वो तो एक्सेप्शंस में बताऊंगा मैं. ठीक है. अब आगे आ जाओ. अब आता है डिफेमेशन ऑफ अ क्लास. क्लास मतलब पूरे एक क्लास को आप यू आर डिफेमिंग a particular class of people. So normally defamation of class is no defamation. You cannot defame a class of people. ठीक है. but इसमें भी एक गुगली है कि but if the class is well defined one, if a class is well defined one, for example in a society particular people are staying, so if that class is well defined and that class is ascertainable, you can actually ascertainable persons, then definitely you can file a case of defamation. Now this defamation of a class has been provided in your explanation 2. आ जाओ explanation 2 पे. Are you guys in explanation 2?
Yes, sir.
So it may amount to defamation to make a statement concerning a company. So, एक सेकेंड ही कहाँ गया? Company. So पहले तो company is also a class of person, right? So defamation आप हो सकता है. Second, association or collection of person. Association of person भी हो सकता है. It can be of association of person. Then it can be of collection of person. Collection of person. ठीक है. Company, association of person, collection of person हो सकता है explanation 2 में. So मतलब you can file a there can be a defamation of a class of person. You can defame a class of person, but that class should be well defined one. And it should be ascertainable people. ऐसे नहीं कि आप साधारण सारे वकीलों को बोल दिया कि तुम सब चोर हो. So now this is not ascertainable. If you are accusing all the advocates of being thieves, so this is not defamation because the class is not ascertainable. All auto rickshaw walas are chor. This is not defamation because the class is not ascertainable. This particular union of auto rickshaw is thief. Are thieves. This ascertainable class, specifically directed to one particular ascertainable class, this is defamation. Fine. So आपका जो ये class है, that has to be ascertainable. So for instance, अब जैसे इसमें एक सेकेंड, जैसे reference to advocates as dalal. An advocate, one person in his speech referred advocates as dalal, and a lot of them filed defamation cases. It was all held non-defamatory because he referred lawyers as a whole. The class wasn't ascertainable. The class has to be ascertainable. ठीक है? Showing advocates in films through dialogues or visuals as indulging in undesirable activities. It may be in bad taste, but it is not defamatory because it's of a class. Completely class का है. And the class is not ascertainable. You are not able to ascertain a class. पूरे सबको ही बोल दिया. So in that case, that is not defamation. That won't amount to defamation. Fine, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. अब आते हैं innuendo. Yes, Mansi.
सर सपोज किसी पर्टिकुलर सिटीज के एडवोकेट आई मीन उनके बारे में कुछ गलत बोला गया, सो
असर्टेनेबल है तो हाँ. अगर पर्टिकुलर बार के बारे में, सिटीज में तो बहुत सारे होंगे ना, असर्टेनेबल कहाँ होंगे? पर्टिकुलर बार के एडवोकेट्स होंगे तो हाँ हो सकता है. ठीक है, ये बार के तो चोर ही हैं लोग. इन दैट केस यस. ठीक है. चलो एक सेकंड म्यूट क्यों नहीं हो रहा? वेट अ सेक, सृष्टि म्यूट करो। हाँ जी ठीक है। Innuendo. Now innuendo is, what is innuendo? What is happening here, that there is a hidden meaning in innuendo that is defamatory. Hidden meaning is defamatory. The ordinary meaning of the word is not defamatory. The ordinary meaning is ordinarily. It's a double meaning. The statement is of double meaning. The hidden meaning is defamatory. The ordinary meaning of the word is not defamatory, but the hidden meaning of such words is defamatory. So it is indirect suggestion, जिसको बोलते हैं ना indirect suggestion. ठीक है. So in such cases, suppose अब एक example, the most prominent example for innuendo is this thing. Remember एक movie आई थी Bombay to Goa. Bombay to Goa. A movie was there in Bombay to Goa. Remember?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
ठीक है. Now in Bombay to Goa, in that movie there is this scene wherein what happens, that that the entire Indian team is found training in a forest, and they get on to this bus, and the conductor of the bus tells them that chappal ne tumko chappal bana diya. Now here chappal, they are referring to two things. Chappal means slippers, but they are also referring to Greek chapel. Okay. So in this case, Greek chapel was offended by this statement. Why are they referring me? I'm long gone. Why are they referring me? So this is actually referring a double meaning or a hidden meaning is defamatory. So here the hidden meaning was defamatory, and that was common to everyone. But everyone can understand what they are referring to. Every kid could understand what they were referring to. They were definitely referring to Greek chapel. So this was an innuendo. Innuendo is the hidden meaning. The ordinary meaning is not defamatory, but when you get into the hidden meaning or the double meaning, that is defamatory. So that is what is that will amount to defamation as well. And this has been covered by explanation 3. एक बार explanation 3 पे आ जाओ. Explanation 3 में हो?
Yes, sir.
An imputation in the form of an alternative or expressed ironically may amount to defamation. So alternative पे या ironical, both will amount to ironical may amount to defamation. So they are covering the situation of innuendo here. So here the thing is that now there is a higher responsibility on the complainant. When the complainant wants to file the case, here the complainant will have to provide the attributes to the word, the meaning which was intended, and the existence of the fact to support that meaning. Okay. So in that, usually it's easy. If it's common, it's easy. For example, in Greek chapel case, it was very easy. Because they were referring in the Indian team context, and who was the coach of the Indian team at that point of time? That was Greek chapel. So it was easier to establish the hidden meaning that they are referring ultimately to him. So the burden here is on the complainant to establish the meaning of the attributes, okay, and the existence of the meaning. Simple as that. ठीक है कि ये मतलब है इसका, ये complainant को बताना. Fine. Is this clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
अब एक मूवी थी, एक बुक है, sorry. Now author indulges into an imaginary conversation between parliamentarians of a political parties, brought out through a satirical and ironical expressions. And what do these guys do? They make confessions about their misdeeds, and they are ministers belonging to a political party. Okay, and they are ministers belonging to the political party. It was held defamation. Though the situation was imaginary, but the imputation against the persons were real. Okay, and they were intended to harm the reputation. So they were intended to harm the reputations, and they were being shown as they're cheating public or abusing powers. So that is the reason that this was held to be defamation. ठीक है, अब सबसे बेस्ट एग्जांपल इनेंडो का है ये, दिस ऐप, अब गाय, मोर ऑफ अ गेम, एक बंदे ने क्रिएट की है, एंड ही इज फ्रॉम पुणे, he has created this game, the game's name is Solomon Bhai, not Salman Bhai, it's Solomon Bhai. In this game what happens, the character, he goes on and he starts to kill deers. Okay, now are you guys about to, can you guys make out whom they are trying to refer?
Yes, sir.
Salman Khan.
Yes, Salman Khan.
ठीक,
Yes,
He
sir.
kills black bugs.
yes अनुकृति, yes अनुकृति, क्या बोल रहे हो?
सर ये वाला एग्जांपल देख के मुझे वो बुली बाई वाला याद आ गया जो अभी चल रहा है आजकल।
बुली भाई क्या है वो?
सर बुली बाई एक ऐप है जिसमें सर, उसमें सर लाइक जो बाई सर लाइक दे आर द होम, लाइक द दे वर्क इन आवर होम्स, द मेड्स।
अच्छा वो पता नहीं, आई डोंट नो। अब ये इसमें हुआ तो इसमें, now this game is made in 3 stages. In one, he drives and he's killing deers. Both are associated with Salman Khan. Now at the start of this game there is this caution. The caution is this, that this game representation is merely a fictional context. Okay, any driver who tries to relate to this video game to the real world is a complete dash, and you can dash themselves, thank you. Now here they have used the word fictional context, but still the persons can make out, people can make out whom they are referring to, and they are certainly harming the reputation of our dear Salman Khan. So definitely this is a case of defamation, and Salman Khan in fact approached the court and got this game banned for a few days, and then they had to make certain changes, and it was on again. Okay, so this was a case of defamation. ठीक है, is this clear? Clear है ये? बताइए।
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, this is innuendo, hidden meaning. अब आ जाते हैं exception में. Now you have 10 exceptions in total. 10 exceptions. ठीक है. You had 4 explanations. Let us quickly revise the 4 explanations. 4 explanation में पहला था explanation 4, which actually defined defamation. What can amount to defamation? Then there was explanation 1, which told you that a dead person can also be defamed. Then we went on to understand explanation 2. Wait, ये आग पे चुभ रहा है ना? Wait, आग पे चुभ रहा था, एक सेकेंड। ठीक है, explanation ठीक है, we started with explanation 4, ठीक है, which defined defamation. Then we went on to understand explanation 1, which provided for the person of dying, defamation of a dying person. Then explanation 2 में we went on to discuss class defamation. The class has to be specified or ascertainable. And then we went on to understand explanation 3. ठीक है, explanation 3 में innuendo, ठीक है, satirical form में या hidden meaning के द्वारा you are defaming a person. So these were the 4 explanations. Now exception. Now when I say that a case falls under an exception, it means that it is the liability of defamation does not arise. If a case falls under any of these 10 exceptions, the liability of defamation does not arise. और 10 exceptions में इतना कुछ है भी नहीं. एक सेकंड, टाइम कितना हुआ है? हम हैं गुड, वी आर गुड ऑन टाइम? नो,
9:30.
तो पता ही नहीं चला, कल ही करना पड़ेगा, ना बोर हो जाओगे 10 के 10. ठीक है, एनी डाउट्स यू गाइस हैव एट प्रेजेंट अभी?
सर वो जो प्रिविलेज कम्युनिकेशन वाला था पॉइंट, उसका सर मुझे स्टैंस क्लियर नहीं हो रहा है. मतलब इन अ प्रिविलेज कम्युनिकेशन वो मेक वाली एक्टर सीरीज में तो फॉल कर ही ना है ना, इवन इफ इट इज नॉट अ पब्लिकेशन.
वो मेक वाले में फॉल कर रहा है, बट यू कैन नॉट प्रूव इट ना इन कोर्ट, बिकॉज यू आर प्रिविलेज्ड, बिकॉज यू आर प्रोहिबिटेड बाय एविडेंस लॉ. यू कैन नॉट ब्रिंग इट बिफोर कोर्ट. एनी कम्युनिकेशन बिटवीन lawyers and the client, you cannot bring in court. No, you are prohibited. बाय एविडेंस लॉ। तो चाहे मेक हो या कुछ भी हो, बट ला ही नहीं सकते तो कैसे होगा लायबिलिटी?
बट द थर्ड पार्टी, वो वाला जो आपने एक्सेप्शन बताया था, अगर किसी और को पता चल गया और एविडेंस है तब लायबल हो जाएगा।
तब लायबल हो जाएगा, बट इसमें 122 में लायबल हो जाएगा। 122 में क्योंकि हम सिर्फ वो जो हस्बैंड और सॉरी जो जो कम्युनिकेशन है वो हस्बैंड और उसमें भी उसके बीच में।
ठीक है सर।
यस फरा।
सर जो आप ये ऑथर वाला एग्जांपल दिया वो पब्लिक पर्सनालिटी के नीचे नहीं आएगा वैसे?
हाँ पब्लिक कौन सा? ये वाले ऑथर में?
हाँ
ये वाले ऑथर में पब्लिक पर्सनालिटी के बीच में आएगा इफ इट इज कंप्लीटली डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट। इन दिस केस इट वाज कंप्लीटली डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट। इफ इट इज नॉट कंप्लीटली डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट देन इट वोंट फॉल। ठीक है।
डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट मतलब किस तरह से? मतलब
Meaning
पॉलिटिकल
that-
लीडर्स पे सैटिरिकल तो डालते ही है ना लोग।
सैटिरिकल डालते हो आप। See, there are two things. If you are commenting upon his public question, then it is fine. Then you can get into satiric. You can do it. But if you are commenting upon his personal life, then that can amount to defamation. For example, you are saying that this fellow was in an affair with some lady. Now, this here you are actually commenting upon his personal life. So then, in that case, that can amount to defamation. अब यहाँ पर हाँ यहाँ पर थोड़ा पब्लिक है, थोड़ा पर्सनल है। मैं वो आगे क्लियर कर दूंगा एक्सेप्शंस पे। व्हेन वी रीच एक्सेप्शन आई विल क्लियर इट। ठीक है। यस अनुकृति।
सर जैसे आप अभी बता रहे थे वो वागीज वाले केस में, सर जैसे अगर वाला क्वेश्चन आ जाएगा हमारे एग्जाम में तो सर हम उसके आंसर में क्या लिखेंगे? आप जरा एक बार
नॉट लायबल, जो फादर इन लॉ वाला ना, ये प्रिविलेज कम्युनिकेशन वाला आया तो नॉट लायबल बिकॉज द कम्युनिकेशन कैन नॉट बी प्रूव्ड इन कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ। ऐसे करके आप लिखते हैं। ठीक है। फादर इन लॉ वाला एज इट इज आया तो यू विल नॉट होल्ड लायबल, but you will say that this was the opinion of the court, but this opinion cannot be referred to because it is not binding in nature. ठीक है।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सर।
यस मानसी।
सर जस्ट अ क्लैरिफिकेशन, दैट हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ की भी जो भी कम्युनिकेशन होगी वो डिफॉर्मेशन के अंदर नहीं आएगा, राइट? क्योंकि 122 से प्रोटेक्ट कर लेगा।
ठीक है। यस अनन्या। यस अनन्या। यस अनन्या। नॉट ऑडिबल। यस अदिति।
सर am I audible?
यू आर ऑडिबल। आवाज खराब हो
सर
गई
वो
आपकी।
यस इसीलिए पूछ नहीं पा रही हूँ सर। वो फादर इन लॉ वाले केस पे हस्बैंड को हम लोग मतलब लाइबल क्यों कर रहे हैं? उसमें लेटर्स के थ्रू तो हम प्रूव कर सकते हैं ना कि उसने ये सब कम्युनिकेट किया था।
तो लायबल करना चाहिए आप बोल रहे हो ना?
हाँ लाइबल करना चाहिए।
से आइडियली लायबल करना चाहिए, मतलब अगर हम एज इट इज देखें और 122 का बार नहीं लग रहा है इसमें, बट यू वोंट होल्ड लायबल बिकॉज वी आर नॉट सर्टन ऑन दिस पॉइंट। अभी तक हम सर्टन नहीं है कि 1 कंसिडर करेंगे या नहीं, बट आइडियली so that is the reason you won't hold them liable, because if you hold them liable every communication with wife will amount to defamation. Problematic है
सर बट उसमें लेटर्स के थ्रू तो हम लोग प्रूव कर सकते हैं ना कि उसने
प्रूफ कर सकते हो डेफिनेटली।
क्योंकि आपने बोला था ना कि लेटर्स को तो ला सकते हैं कोर्ट में,
लेटर्स
उन दोनों को नहीं ला सकते।
प्रूफ कर सकते हो, बट वेदर द ऑफेंस ऑफ डिफेमेशन इज मेड आउट, दैट इज स्टिल नॉट क्लियर। वो तो प्रूफ करने का पॉइंट पे वो क्लियर है, बट वेदर दैट इज स्टिल एन ऑफेंस, वेदर द ऑफेंस ऑफ पब्लिशिंग मेकिंग इज मेड आउट, वो अभी तक क्लियर नहीं है लॉ में।
तो सर इस पे आंसर आएगा तो हम लोग किस तरीके से लिखेंगे? आप इतना बता सकते हैं?
अक्विट कर लो।
अक्विट कर दे ये कह के कि
एविडेंस
के बीच में।
हाँ एविडेंस इट कैन बी टेकन एज एविडेंस,
कम्युनिकेशन।
हाँ बट द कम्युनिकेशन वाज बिटवीन हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ and it is therefore it won't amount to, the communication was privileged in nature, therefore it won't amount to defamation. ठीक है। though we can prove the communication but that communication itself won't amount to defamation. ठीक है।
ओके ओके सर, थैंक यू सर।
अब प्रूव कर लो कोर्ट में, बट वो कम्युनिकेशन सिर्फ डिफेमेशन नहीं होनी चाहिए। क्यों ना, पर्पस क्या हुआ उसको प्रिविलेज रखने का? पर्पस ये है कि जो दैट दे कैन फ्रीली से एनीथिंग ना बिटवीन देम।
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
यस एमा।
न्यूज चैनल पे जो सो सॉरी नो सॉरी वाला वो पार्ट दिखाता है आज तक पे या ऐसे भी सारे न्यूज पे, तो सर वो डेफेमेशन में आएगा या नहीं?
नहीं आएगा. दैट इज अ पब्लिक फिगर टचिंग पब्लिक क्वेश्चन. सो वो डिफेमेशन में नहीं आता. ठीक है.
सर ये जो हम लोग पॉलिटिकल पार्टी वाला जो स्लाइड है उसमें तो है ना कि इमेजिनरी कॉन्वर्सेशन है और मतलब सैटारिकल रिमार्क्स ही बातें करे जा रहे, तो फिर यहाँ पे तो डेफेमेशन लिखा है.
ये दूसरा है. दिस इज विद रिगार्ड टू जब बहुत ही एक्सीड कर दिया आपने, किसी के जबान कुछ प्रूफ ही नहीं है, आपने उनके ऊपर बड़े बड़े एलिगेशन थोप दिए. दैट इज अ डिफरेंट इशू ऑल टुगेदर. ठीक है. अगर कुछ आपके पास बैकिंग ही नहीं है, आपने ऐसा ही ओपिनियन एक बना लिया, देन इट इज डिफेमेशन. फाइन.
Yes sir, thank you.
Sorry, sir, it seems that I am not audible. Sir, in examples of Kangana Ranaut, wouldn't it be a case of public personality developing a thick skin? See, it won't be a case of thick skin. The reason being that, see, thick skin कब apply होता है? Thick skin applies when a public person is questioned on a public issue. Fine. A public person, एक public personality, public के उसमें issue पे हो रहा है, तो thick skin apply होगा. But अगर आप उसकी personal life में encroach कर रहे हो, and you are trying to concoct a new things in his personal life by falsely stating something, that will amount to defamation. That will amount to defamation. और इस केस में thick skin का इतना नहीं आएगा, because it's a clear allegation with malice involved in it. ठीक है. Is this clear? चलिए कल एक्सेप्शन करेंगे. एक्सेप्शन में इतना टाइम नहीं लगेगा. एक्सेप्शंस आर वेरी इजी. It won't take much time because this concept was the only thing that was a little lengthy. Exceptions are easy. Okay, chalo. Bye guys.
Thank you, sir.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.